Our next guest has a bold prediction. She says that 401ks will be gone within a decade as the government looks for additional sources of revenue to keep up with entitlement programs, ending tax-advantaged retirement plans. Joining us now, Allison Schrager, Manhattan Institute's senior fellow. Good to see you this morning. I want you to explain your rationale, Allison, but I just looking at the retirement situation we have in this country, and I understand we have a $34 trillion problem in terms of total debt, but I don't see how, trying to deal with one makes sense to pull the rug out from what is not a great situation in the first place. The retirement picture is already troubling enough. So why do you think this is going to happen?
Well, I want to be clear. I don't think retirement accounts are going away, but the tax deduction, I think we can sort of see that gaining less favor. We're already seeing the last 10 years, there's certainly among academics been growing evidence that the tax deduction doesn't induce people to save more. It just gets people, it's really the automatic enrollment that gets people to save more. And generally what happens is when people do save more in their retirement accounts, they save less elsewhere. So overall net savings doesn't change. So what we're seeing on the left as well is a lot of discomfort with the 401k plans because the benefits largely accrue to the wealthy. And now we're seeing as well more right-leaning economists also being questionable about the 401k because they're saying it doesn't get people to save more anyway. It is tax advantage. I mean, it's not tax. A lot of people seem to think that it's tax-free. It's not. You put the money in, you do pay taxes when you take it out, although you do save on capital gains taxes. And even that is estimated to be almost 1% of GDP. So as we're looking more to revenue, particularly in the next 10 years when we start having to pay more for entitlements, it just seems like an obvious place to start, I think, for a lot of people. I'm a little, honestly, more skeptical. There are still things I like about the 401k, mainly the penalty that keeps people from saving or withdrawing. But there's certainly, I'm seeing a movement on the left and the right to say, what are we doing this for? We need revenue. This is a good place to start.
If you don't want people depending on the government as they get older, and so don't touch entitlements, and make it harder for people to have a bigger nest egg. I don't understand that. I would think that you would. I mean, because the compounding of money is so much quicker. That's why people buy annuities. Anything that's tax deferred. The nest egg that a person has when they finally approach retirement is going to be higher if it wasn't taxed as it was accruing each year. So it seems like you're just putting more strain on entitlements when some of those entitlements are what you should be looking at. I mean, if you really want to fix the problem, I don't know why you do it with 401k. I would means test entitlements.
Well, I mean, if we really want to do this right, we probably would put individual accounts be a bigger centerpiece of our retirement system. But the entitlement system we have is incredible, I think, as we can see, incredibly popular, and people will not tolerate cuts to it at all. And that's going to be putting a lot of strain on sort of our fiscal situation. So I think isn't that people don't want people saving for retirement. It's just that I think growing evidence, the tax deduction doesn't really induce people to save more. So maybe we could use this as another source of revenue that would be a lot more politically palatable than just like a bigger tax on income.
So even if you were to do entitlement reform, I mean, I don't know many people that think that we can get around it eventually. Why can't you do it when it's politically unpopular for people that are retiring in 2 or 3 or 5 years, but why not change it for people 20, 30 years from now?
I mean, as I said, like all of us pension scholars would love that. We've been sort of shouting that for years. It just isn't. I mean, I think we can even see in this political campaign, even discussions of increasing the retirement age for people my age is sort of become just sort of politically toxic. So, I mean, there's a lot of things we could do that would be better, but they've just proven impossible over the years. So I think this is why ultimately, the 401k doesn't seem to have the same fan base that sort of that the Social Security system does, or even sort of corporate tax rates do. So I think this is why this is looking like a likely target.
Well, it's not going to help. Obviously, it's not going to solve the problem. So what will solve the problem? How are we going to pay for all the non-discretionary things that we're going to pay for? Where should, if the tax rate is above 50% in total, in many places for many people around the country, what would advocates for higher taxes think is a fair rate? Is 70% okay?
Well, I don't think anyone who says 70% is fair is advocating that, is thinking because it's fair. I think they're being more punitive. I was emailing with one of the people who wrote the paper, who, as I said, is a conservative economist, Andy Biggs, and he was like, it's not that I want higher taxes. He's like, I just think that getting rid of the 401k tax deduction will just be less distortionary than other things we could do. I'd rather see this than a 70% income tax.
Yeah, but how much money are we talking about?
Well, honestly, not enough. It's, as I said, like 1% of GDP, but it is a start. And, at least I think the thinking is as well is at least tied to the retirement system. So it then goes back into entitlements. So, I mean, I said, like, if I were in charge and I could completely reform entitlements, this is not how I would do it. It's just, as I said, like, with the tax system we have, with an entitlement system that seems completely intractable and unable to reform, this just seems like the least bad option.